On tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin, Julia weakening into the Pacific. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for October 10th. Right now, we still have two systems active. Well, partly. Balita is just about fighting the dust, and Julia is not far behind, actually, weakening as a tropical storm as it moves into the eastern Pacific Ocean just off the coast of El Salvador. I think right now, code orange remains in effect. Here's the Atlantic Ocean, and it's fantastic to see that it is empty once again on day 132 of hurricane season. That's because Julia is now fully moved over, although some of its bands are still affecting the coast of Honduras and into the Yucatan Peninsula, but nothing behind it or anywhere in the Atlantic next 5 days. We've got Julia, of course, in the eastern Pacific, which is now emerging over the water and is likely to pass close to the coast and gradually get sheared away as it continues to weaken in the next couple of days, and it will be gone pretty soon. Western Pacific, two broad areas of interest here that we've marked. There might be others on the scenario as well, but it's a very uncertain situation, but we're given a 40% chance of a potential storm near Luzon and a 30% chance for another area that's likely to develop near the Mariana Islands soon. And in the South Indian Ocean, Balita is dying off. It's a remnant low at this point after peaking as a tropical storm probably around 24 hours ago as its peak, and another early season storm for the Indian Ocean. Let's check some satellite imagery right now, and this is what the Atlantic looks like, and you can still see Julia there commanding a large part of the Western Caribbean. Behind it, a dry slot, another little disturbance there that's blowing up a lot of cloud tops, but nothing likely to develop out of that or anything else in the Atlantic. East Pacific, we're just looking at the other side of Julia really, and out towards that eastern Pacific Ocean. It's becoming less likely that we'll see something form out of Julia's remnants or part of the southern outflow or whatever, but the chance is still there, but it is a very small one now. Here's another view of Julia on the infrared imagery, not looking quite as good on this one. It looks a lot better when you look at its water vapor influence, but on the infrared, the enhancement here showing those cloud tops, it's struggling a little bit and not got much structure, starting to weaken off. Those cloud tops on the northern side, those bands across Honduras, they'll be delivering quite a lot of rain right now, but I think those will start to decrease over time as they generally move towards the west. There's a proper look at that infrared without the visible hybrid imagery there. Of course, it's just gone dark now over this area, and you can still see where the center of the storm is. I'm not looking too bad, but not many deep cloud tops near the center, and that's probably going to remain the case now up until its dissipation when it gets torn apart as it approaches the Gulf of Tehuantepec. So this storm note still an extremely large feature, and will be delivering rainfall over very large areas across Central America right now. Western Pacific looks quite messy, and you can already see these disturbances starting to take shape now, especially the one near the Philippines and one possibly near the Mariana Islands. There's actually a few areas there near the Marianas on either side that could eventually become a dominant system over the next few days, so it's a wait and see and a very uncertain scenario. Indian Ocean, you can see down the bottom there, Cyclone Balita. One might argue it might be holding on just a little bit, but most of it is gone now, and the Force 13 team have gone with remnant low at this time. Further north, not much going on. And in the southern Indian Ocean, we are now starting to see the feature that could develop into a subtropical cyclone, but the chances are low in the South Pacific near Tonga. You can see that system there, and we'll keep monitoring that closely over the next 24 hours for possible development, but it is a low chance. Well, this is the eastern Pacific right now in terms of sea surface temperatures. There's still quite a few areas of 30 degrees Celsius or warmer, so decent areas ahead of this storm, but it won't really matter very much. It's other features that will take it out. Atlantic still looking very good for future storms, although there's not any on the radar right now, but a 28-degree isotherm extending way up north there in the central Atlantic up to around 30 degrees in large areas. Gulf of Mexico waters retreating a little bit, but still plenty warm. In the Western Pacific and the Indian Ocean, still warm there in the Indian Ocean, especially along the Bay of Bengal northern coastline over Bangladesh and the Ganges River Delta. And in the Western Pacific, the Philippine Sea, very warm, particularly at lower latitudes, and that area in the South China Sea extending off the western coast of Luzon. Very warm temperatures though still across the whole Western Pacific, and there's still plenty of fuel in this one yet for late season activity. Whether we'll see it or not, well, that's a big question. It certainly looks like we'll see plenty of competing systems in the next week. Here is the anomalies, and once again still very cold anomalies in the Nino area, depicting quite a significant La Nina still in effect. Western Pacific above average, Atlantic generally above as well, apart from the Florida region of course after Ian basically, and in the Eastern Pacific it's hit and miss. Oceanic heat content is still very warm in the Western Caribbean, but not the area where Julia was a couple of days ago. It was over rather cold or less oceanic heat content, which potentially slowed it down a little bit. East Pac, only a few areas there off the coast of Mexico, and in the Western Pacific, quite a few areas still at this point, particularly approaching the Philippine Islands, looking good. Let's check these computer models then, up to 5 days out. You can see Julia there not really making an impact on that imagery, and potentially that second system that forms from its ashes. And GFS still wants it to become a tropical storm and potentially even maybe reach hurricane status. Other models aren't so keen on that, and our analyst team have dropped it completely. Just look into the Gulf there for a potential system forming. There's a little circulation, a weak one, but it doesn't look like we'll get a tropical cyclone there in the Bay of Campeche. Western Pacific during this 5-day period, there's a lot to look at on this one. It gets a bit complicated. So a system forming there north of the Mariana Islands, and potentially another system moving through the Philippines into the South China Sea where it really gets going. They don't get particularly strong, but I imagine that all of this will create choppy conditions around the whole region, and potentially the significance of heavy rainfall over this general area. But loads of systems try to form out east, out west. There's so much going on in this picture going out to 5 days. And this is the South Pacific near Fiji and Tonga. There's that first system, which is most likely not going to be tropical, but then there's a second one that GFS develops within the 5-day period. Probably has a slightly better chance, but still shouldn't become a subtropical or tropical cyclone. But we'll keep watching just in case, because there is that outside chance for both of them. There it is again with both of those systems pushing through, and that second one might possibly be a wind threat to New Zealand as it pans down there. Maybe not, but we'll see. Look at the rainfall expectations now for the Western Pacific region, and you can see the Philippines there particularly impacted by high rain rates, and that extends further west as that 7-day period transpires across Hainan Island and then across the coast of Vietnam. So we're looking at significant rainfall amounts over quite a few different areas there if these models are correct to GFS. 23 inches there in the Philippines, which is a lot. That's getting towards, that's over 500 millimeters. I think it's getting towards, I'm trying to remember what it is, but it's over 500 millimeters in any case, and some high amounts along the coast of Vietnam as well, also above 500 millimeters possible. But this is a low confidence scenario, and different areas might get the heaviest rainfall. In the longer range, day 5 to 10, track that system that emerges from Julia's remnants, and it stalls actually in a similar place to where Orlean was forming, and then eventually makes haste for Mazatlan as a weak tropical storm. Like I said, other models aren't really supporting this, and the CAT team are giving it a 0% chance. They've not marked it on their books, but that's what the GFS is showing right now, a potential storm. Also in the medium range, this is what the Western Pacific is showing. More tropical storm force winds in the Gulf of Tonkin and around Taiwan. Just a very unsettled picture here, and possibly more storms forming there near the Philippines, but just very disorganized, unstructured. A lot of slop, if I may say so, in the Western Pacific in that up to day 10 from now, and really nothing properly getting going and becoming a significant typhoon or even a strong tropical storm. So that's what the Western Pacific is showing right now. And in the Indian Ocean, over this 10-day period, day 5 to 10, I think it does end up generating something. We have been watching this for a while, by the way, and there is a storm forming there near the Andaman Islands, and that does start to rotate. In fact, there's two centers there that start to rotate and might merge into one. I'll believe that when I see it, but that's what they're suggesting now for the Indian Ocean towards that day 10 period. So we've been watching this for a while. It was in the super long range, and now it's just getting into the medium to long range. That's all the important stuff done though. You can scan this barcode and take a look at the Force 13 store. We've got full season and individual animations that you can request on demand, and also our full line of merch, including the Still Waiting for Hone t-shirts, which are still waiting. In the Scilly range, this is the Western Pacific once again, showing us what we might see in day 10 through 16, and a few storms get their act together possibly. One there for northern Luzon, another one further out, and then another one forming there approaching the Mariana Islands, and that western one in the South China Sea becoming a typhoon there and heading in towards the coast of Vietnam via the southern tip of Hainan Island. So a lot going on, if the GFS is to be believed, over this whole 3-week period in the Western Pacific. So we'll see what happens with that, but certainly the potential, as we saw with those warm sea surface temperatures. Indian Ocean, this system eventually consolidates and does strengthen to become a substantial cyclone once again. This is what they were showing last time. And there it is, taking its time, or this time becoming hurricane equivalent briefly before making landfall as a Category 1 probably. Watch it again there. A very odd track as well in the Bay of Bengal. Usually we see them a lot more straight, but there we go. Sometimes the steering currents can loosen up around this area. But once again, this is extremely long range out, and I wouldn't put much faith in it yet. Well then, what happened on this day on October 10th, 1995? Take a look at Roxanne, a nice looking little hurricane there, reaching Category 3 status on this day, and would be pretty much at that intensity up until landfall just south of Cozumel along the Yucatan Peninsula. We also had two tropical storms active in the Western Pacific, Ted, which was approaching Vietnam I think, and Val, which was not really doing much out there in the open waters of the Western Pacific, a little away from the Ogasawara Islands. And that was October 10th, 1995. Back to this year, and next up in the Atlantic naming list we have Carl. In the Eastern Pacific it's going to be Roslyn, and in the Central Pacific we are still waiting for Hone. There's not much that can be said about that. 73 storms have formed so far worldwide. In the Western Pacific, we've still got Sonka to reach yet, and after that it's Nesat. Both of those might get named in the next week. And in the North Indian Ocean, Sitrang might be in the not too distant future, but as I've mentioned, don't take that one on face value yet. In the Australian region, the next name is Darian, the Southwest Indian Ocean, Chiniso, and in the South Pacific we have Harley. But that's all for tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again, as always, tomorrow night.